Hello guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another one of my top fives of a year. So today we're doing my top 5 favourite horror films of 1983. We've done 80, 81 and 82, so today's 83. Oh, I'm looking a bit grey and I need to sort this out, get some of that old Just for Men on. I do try to keep myself looking a bit more less grey than this, but I know I'm only kidding myself, but it makes you feel a bit better, doesn't it? So I must do that soon. So in a week or two's time, you might see me with a darker beard. But anyway, we're going to crack on with my top 5 of this year. This year was not one of the strongest years in the 80s for horror films that I liked, to be honest. The next one's a corker, and the one before was a corker. This one was a little bit weaker on the horror movie front for me. There were some great movies out, but for me, I just found it a bit weaker. But there is 5 that stood out for me from that year. Number 5 is a really unknown sort of slasher film about a group of kids that come across an axe murderer in the sort of wild, and it's called The Prey. I absolutely really like this film. I saw it when it came out back in the day, and I've not seen it for about 30 years nearly, probably, and I've picked this up on from Amazon, Arrow, and it was so good to revisit it because I remembered how much I really enjoyed this. Yeah, this one is a typical sort of slasher with an axe wielding killer. I'm not going to say stuff to it because I don't want to kill it. In fact, I think there might be a review of this on my channel, so you might need to go back over and have a good look. And now I've got myself my Noodle app, my laptop. I might try and sort my channel out one day and try and put things into playlists, so hopefully I can do that. But yeah, number 5 is The Prey. Number 4 is a sci-fi horror film, which is really good fun, really gory, but really cool fun. It's a B movie called The Deadly Spawn. Now I've only still got this on my Vipco DVD. I think it has got like an international sort of a Blu-ray release, not actually a proper British Blu-ray release. I'm not quite sure, but it is something I would like to pick up on Blu-ray at some point. This is about this meteorite or whatever, and it's got on board this sort of creature, and it's tiny, but then it sort of goes off and goes into this family's basement, and then it sort of starts eating things and eating people and growing bigger and bigger, and it's got loads and loads of teeth, and it's a really strange looking creature with like tentacles with like mouths on the end of them and things like this. It's a really strange looking sort of monster. All I remember, it's got loads of layers of teeth, loads of them, and it's quite gory. When it's not the sort of like all out sort of violent film, but when it does happen, it is quite gory. It's a really cool film, and monster flicks were about in the 80s. Things like this and The Blob and stuff like that were about, and so it's just like they were more comical, if you know what I mean, than a sort of a serious sort of monster flick like Godzilla or the other sort of like your Piranhas or your Jaws and all that sort of thing that come in the 70s. They went down the sort of more comical route. There were a few serious ones out there like Arachnophobia, things like that, but this one was really good fun, and it's a really cool sci-fi horror, and that's in at my number 4. My 4th favourite film of 1983 horror is The Deadly Spawn. Number 3 is an absolute gem of a slasher film. It's a typical setup. It's no different to Friday the 13th and all those sort of slasher films. It's Sleepaway Camp, the first one. Now, this was a fantastic film. Because it plays out like a a really sort of normal slasher film where you got all, except the difference in this one, the victims in it are the kids, not the camp like runners and stuff like that, like the teachers and that. It's all the kids, but it plays out like a normal sort of slasher film until the end, with the big reveal, and it's got a shocking ending, reveal at the ending, and it does, it leaves you with your mouth agape, thinking, oh my god, I did not see that coming. You know, I thought it was that, but I didn't see it as that sort of thing. It was really, really knock you for six, sort of, and that's why it's fantastic, because it sort of like leads you on the whole film until the very last 5 minutes to the big reveal, and it's like, oh my god, and then it becomes one of the most unforgettable slasher films you've ever seen. Great film though, really cool film. It's about this girl and young boy that are part of this accident on a lake when they were young, and when they're growing up they go away to camp, and all these strange things sort of happen around them, and the girl's a bit sort of like doesn't talk to anyone and a bit withdrawn, and it's a really strange sort of film, but like I said, it really plays out like a classic sort of slasher film, but then all of a sudden it's like, wow, okay, never saw that coming for a minute. So number 3, Sleepaway Camp. I was going to be higher, but these two sort of knocked it to it. Now, in the 1960s, there was number 2. 1960s was a classic horror film that sort of set the genres up for the future. And then the sequel didn't come until 1983, and it is number 2 is Psycho 2. So Anthony Perkins returns as Norman Bates in Psycho 2 for my second favourite horror film of 1983. Absolutely brilliant film. He does his role again as Norman Bates. He obviously they found that he'd been murdering people at the Bates Motel, but it's all down to sort of mental health issues because he was split personality. Now this is based like years later, and I think this is why it works so well, because Anthony Perkins has aged, and so I was just thinking, yeah, that works so well. Like it's almost like it's true. And now he's come out. They've let him out because he's now been sort of he's been recovered, and he's sort of like, you know, and he's on recovery and doing really, really well. Who is he? Yeah, Psycho 2 is my second favourite 1983 horror film. It's a fantastic sequel, amazing sequel. Sometimes the second one is, with a lot of horror films, is the hit and miss of the sequels. The third normally comes out again as a blinder, but the second one is always the one that, the follow-up. There's only few that have really done amazingly. This one, Halloween 2, I think it's a fantastic sequel. And you know, there's very, very few that the sequel sort of comes on par with the original. This is one of them. It's absolutely fantastic. I'm trying to think of any more, apart from Halloween 2. That was really, really good and on par with the first one, I think. Really cool. Maybe Friday the 13th Part 2. But anyway, that's number 2. My favourite horror films of 1983 is Psycho 2. And number 1 is a little bit different one. It's an 80s film, and I believe it's set in the 50s. I can't remember. But it is a Stephen King film story, and it's called Christine. It's not actually a Stephen King film, but it's based on a Stephen King book, and it's in fact a John Carpenter film. And it's called Christine. And this is about a boy who becomes obsessed with an old broken down car. It's his first car, and he becomes absolutely obsessed with it. And the car becomes obsessed with him, and sort of like comes attached to him. And anything that does wrong to him, the car sort of seeks revenge. And he doesn't like him having any sort of female sort of relationships because this car brings him out of himself, and he sort of like really becomes more confident. and not very nice, to be honest. But he gets his car, and he names his car Christine. And this car gets obsessed with the boy just as much as he gets obsessed with the car. It's a very, very cool film. Completely different sort of horror film. And I suppose you could put it down as a monster film, really, because the car is the monster in this one. It, really, really cool movie. Quite really well acted for a horror film. It's got a real sort of 1950s feel to it. I'm not sure if it's actually based in the 50s. I think it. Here we go. She's a devil incarnate. She's 1958 Fury. So it is. It's based in the 50s, but it was made in 1983, and it's a cracking horror film. Really, really cool. So my number one favourite horror film of 1983 is John Carpenter's Christine, based on the Stephen King novel. And that's my top 5 from 1983. What's yours? Let me know down below if you've got a top 5 for that year. But yeah, that's my favourite films, and it's, as you can see, it's quite varied. Yeah, there's a few slashers in there. Psycho 2 you could class as a slasher, psychological slasher. Obviously you have other slashers in there, but and some sci-fi, and also then monster sort of films. So it's a good varied year, and there's some good films in there, but I think it's probably one of the weaker years of the 80s. I think we were so lucky with 80, 81, 82, and I think it almost sort of burnt itself out. But in 84 come along and revived it again. And 84 and 85 are cracking years. So my top 5 for 1983 were 5, The Prey, 4, The Deadly Spawn, 3, Sleepaway Camp. You need to watch that, guys. 2, Psycho 2, and 1, Christine. Fantastic. Anyway, guys, till my next video, please check out some horror channels for me. Check out Horror Hands, Horror Geek, Manvy Film, RS Designs, Pizzawell, I Am the Ice Lord, Cat Watches Horror Movies, and Grumpy Andrew's Haunted House. And a massive shout out to my lad. Until next time, look after yourselves, look after one another, and I really hope I'll see you all soon.